Nigeria has been doing everything possible to ensure that there's no torture in this country. Among the terms of reference of the National Committee Against Torture, one is to receive and consider petitions, complaints about torture. The question is that Amnesty International never, they are a non-governmental organization, they never sent any petition to the National Committee on Torture that we did not treat. So if there is evidence, if there is any incident of torture, the first port of call is the National Committee Against Torture, not to go to the United Kingdom or to Russia and begin to make noise about it. The government of Nigeria has taken that step forward, that there is a machinery set up to examine complaints of torture. We are the 5th government in Africa to do so. Nothing like that. And anytime we receive complaints, we treat them very urgently.
Welcome back. We're still with Director of Research, Amnesty International, Mrs. Nicola Duckworth. Thank you for joining us once again. Well, we're still on this issue of the recently released report on torture in Nigerian chambers. So we're looking at how you got there, how you went about the findings. Now, how much collaboration did you get from the police on this?
Yeah, a certain degree of collaboration. As I said, we managed to get permission to visit a number of police stations and prisons, so on that level, very positive. But I think disappointing in terms of real substantive engagement at higher up levels about our conclusions and our findings. I'm thinking particularly of the police response yesterday, which said that it all came as a total surprise to them, which we find really very disappointing, because we've been communicating with them over a long period. We sent them in advance a briefing of our key findings and invited their response so it could be included in our report. We've been trying all this week to seek a meeting with the Inspector General of Police in advance of our press conference, which is, this is the way that we work. We want to present the findings to the authorities in advance to get their response so that we can reflect it. That didn't happen. So, as I said, it's rather disappointing that the only response is that we didn't try and talk to them in advance, which from our point of view is not the case. And also disappointing that their response was that, just to deny all these things completely, which again, we think we have presented compelling evidence to the contrary. But of course, we're happy to resend them the briefing that we passed on. Perhaps it didn't reach them. These things happen. We understand that. So we'd be very happy to contact them again with our detailed findings and with our evidence. But we really would hope that from that point that they do take this more seriously than they seem to have done to date, and really look at the having some thorough and independent investigations into this practice.
So you reached the Inspector General of Police on this, and he did not respond?
Reached him. He referred to his secretary to look at schedules and timelines, and unfortunately nothing came through. So again, we understand.
So how long were you on this, on the IG?
We sent a letter in August, a month ago, about this forthcoming visit, seeking a meeting, giving the dates when we'd be available. So again, didn't hear back. So once we actually were in Abuja, again trying to call directly from here to arrange it.
So you started the arrangement right after you finished your findings?
Yes, we finished the findings.
So while you were still on it? While you were still on it, did you contact any police?
Yes, yeah. I mean, and this has been something that we've been raising with the authorities for some 10 years. It's not the first report that we've done on torture. So again, the findings are not, actually completely different from over the last decade. You know, very much that this is a widespread practice, that the police very frequently use torture and ill treatment as to extract so-called confessions as a shortcut to get to court for a conviction, or indeed to extort money or unfortunately sexual favours, shall we say, especially of women picked up.
But you know, the spokesman, the fourth spokesman, Emmanuel Juku, he said in a report, he said the report contained blatant falsehoods and innuendos, and he says that it's marks of indecency and intemperate language. And he says all of this is so false, and the police is not capable of such behavior. So how do you take all of this, and how much impact do you think this report would make?
Well, we do hope that it will have a large impact. I mean, just the fact that you've kindly invited me onto your programme to talk about it, I hope is something that will get a conversation and a dialogue going, because that's what we want with the police and the other authorities. You know, we can't change things directly, you know, that's their responsibility, but we really would want the chance to have a dialogue with them, to go through with them in detail where they think we've got something wrong. I mean, that was the point of contacting them in advance in the first place. But as I say, we think these cases are very compelling. We've got very detailed research on that, and we feel that there is strong evidence, as there has been over all these years, that this practice is continuing. It's integral to the way that the police work in trying to get confessions, and it's simply wrong, and it must stop.
You know, you got a first-hand account of these experiences from all over the country, and you heard them, you watched them, you saw these things. Mm-hmm. You know, how very worried are you about what you saw?
I think very worried indeed. I mean, this has been going on for a long time. We see that if the response of the police is just simply to deny everything, that's not a good base to start from in trying to put things right. The testimonies that we quote in the report, I think, are very compelling. These are examples of the 500 ones that we spoke to. We don't work alone. We work very closely with our partner organisations in Nigeria as well. They too have evidence and their testimonies. So I think there's a real groundswell that something must be done in this case. It's not just us. We try and get attention to things from the international level, but you know, there's domestic concern as well, and I think it speaks to the fact that it really is time to try and sort this out.
Would the impact you're hoping to get, would it also include the fact that you want suspected torturers to be brought to justice?
Absolutely, and that's part of having a bill that criminalises torture. Obviously, to bring people to justice, you need proper procedures, you need a proper offence that people can be charged with. And until this starts happening, then there really is this climate of impunity, a sense that there's a total lack of accountability for these actions. People won't stop unless they think there's a real political will from the very top to say, actually, this is not acceptable. Here we are, you know, here's the legislation, here's a bill, you know, if you do this, you will be punished. And once we get that rolling, then that's one of the key things to address this total lack of accountability.
You know, this is not the first country you have taken up research on. In other countries, how much response do you get on issues like this?
Yes, it varies. Unfortunately, in some cases, like Nigeria with the police, there's a complete denial that anything's wrong at all. And I think it's, in my experience, I've worked for Amnesty for over 30 years, it's rare that there's never any case of any ill treatment in any country around the world, wherever you look. But there are many cases where the authorities, when evidence is given to them, and indeed not just through us, but in various other international processes, for example, Nigeria coming up before the African Union or the United Nations. It's not just us, as I say, it's other countries questioning Nigeria about its record. That sometimes countries do respond. You know, they look at the recommendations that have been made in these forums, which are meant to be constructive and helpful, and they do start implementing things. So Yeah, I mean, Nigeria is not the only country that we're focusing on torture. We have a 2-year campaign against torture, looking at countries across the globe in this period. It's the 30th anniversary of a big United Nations treaty against torture, where the international community came together and really said, no, this is a completely abhorrent practice. Nowhere in any circumstances, even in the Nigerian context, if you have armed conflict or anti-terrorism, there are no circumstances where torture is acceptable. Nigeria itself has signed up to that treaty, and all we and other people are asking is that it actually implements what it's committed to do, both in spirit and in law.
All right, Director of Research, thank you very much for your time and
thank you very much.
Dateline Abuja.
Thank you.
Thank you. The report you're about to see features some accounts of torture by security operatives.
I just saw 3 people emerge from nowhere. One was in uniform, a police uniform.
Abdulaziz Hamza is a car dealer along the Kubwa Expressway in Abuja. Last August, he had an encounter with security operatives attached to the Abuja Environmental Protection Board.
I got this lab because I lost my glasses.
Justin Nwankwo is also a victim of torture by security operatives in Nigeria. He explained that he was beaten and stripped naked into signing a confessional statement, which claimed he was culpable in the murder case.
What really bothered me was when I now wanted to pick my call, I just noticed 3 people, one in a police uniform, then the other in this civil defense uniform. You understand? And somebody in mufti, and a woman with a prison uniform on. All of a sudden, they just dragged me out of the car. You understand? I was now saying, what's it? The next thing they say, I was filming, they just started beating me.
The story was, if you are going to the day at all, don't hope you come out. So when the thing suddenly happened, I found myself, I only counted myself as among the dead. That I live is only what a miracle. So they now have to tie my 2 hands, they tied my 2 legs, and passed the rod in between, suspended you like a BBQ, that's the way you used to do a goat or a cow. And for each question you are asked, and you are not replying in accordance with what is square, a bag of sand will be added at your back. So you will be, if you cry out at some point, you pass out. You only come to know you are there when you see some water upon your body.
The Amnesty International, in a report that covers torture cases in Nigeria over 10 years, claims that the Nigerian government has failed to ban and criminalize torture.
Our findings indeed confirm that Nigeria, the largest democracy and the leading economy in Africa, continues to suffer from an aggressive, widespread and institutionalized practice of torture and other forms of ill treatment. We believe and conclude that there is an inherent systemic failure to stamp out torture in Nigeria, which has become a routine practice by police in their investigation of criminal activities and by the military and security services, particularly in their operations against the insurgency in the north. Many police stations in various states, including the Special Anti-Robbery Squad, SARS, and the Criminal Investigations Division, the commonly called CID, have torture chambers, special rooms where suspects are tortured while being interrogated. Some of the victims are present in this room. The title of our report, Welcome to Red Fire, is actually a quote, a message written on the walls of one of these torture chambers in SARS Center in Awokudu, Amba State. We've documented over 12 types of commonplace torture methods in this report, including beatings with whips, gun butts, machetes, batons and sticks, rape and sexual assault, including inserting bottles and spraying tear gas into vaginas of women. We've also documented shootings of legs and foot and arms of detainees, particularly by the military, in an effort to extract information.
But the police, in a press statement, dismissed the report by stating that torture or ill treatment is not an official policy of the Nigerian police. The Code of Conduct of Officers, as well as our regulations, prohibits torture and incivility to members of the public. This position was corroborated by the federal government through the National Orientation Agency.
The force goes out of his way to ensure that his officers behave very, very well. Might be one, there could be a few exceptions, but those are very rare cases. But the impression is created that the force, human rights are abused and all that.
Excessive torture or torture to the extent that people are, subjected to some dehumanizing conditions are not acceptable within the minimum standards of human behavior.
In the meantime, the police continues to plead with Nigerians to show understanding as the force reforms itself for effective policing.
Just we had a sharp pain in our eyes.
Well, thank you for your views and comments. I can only take this one from Chukwuemeka Chukwuka, who said 30% participation of Nigerian youths in politics or nothing. Yes, we can. Well, that's in reaction to the last interview I had with the Kano State Governor last week. Indeed, the 2015 general elections is hitting up. And of course, we also suggest that you get registered in case you have not. And just in case you have registered, ensure you collect your permanent voter's card. Thank you so much for watching and following us on Twitter as we hit the over 5,000 Twitter followers through you. You can also make your contributions by sending us your views using the address and Twitter handle on your screen. And don't forget, you can also view the program on youtube.com/channelsweb/videos and make your comments after viewing the current video as well as older episodes of the program. I'm Gloria Umezuki. Thank you for watching and see you again.